Hey gang, this is Kirk from Momento, and today we are talking about security, but more specifically, authentication and authorization using Momento Auth tokens. There are two types of Momento Auth tokens, super user tokens and fine-grained access tokens. Super user tokens provide access to both control plane and data plane operations. They are primarily used by people who administer an account, but also when you need to programmatically add, change, or delete resources in your Momento account. You should use these tokens carefully though, as these tokens have full access to every resource in an account. The best practice as part of a least privilege access control policy is to only use super user tokens when you absolutely have to, and definitely not for general data plane access. This brings me to the second type of token, fine-grained access tokens. These tokens enable you to grant only data plane level access to users and applications for specific Momento service resources. Here are a few examples of permissions that you can do with fine-grained access tokens. You could grant read-only access to one or more caches or pub/sub topics by name. You could grant read-only or read-write access to all topics in a specific cache. You could grant read-write access to all caches and all topics in a specific region. You probably shouldn't, but you could. Be aware that fine-grained access tokens can only be used to grant access to data plane operations and not control plane operations. Only super user tokens can grant that kind of access. Now let's talk about where to store auth tokens used by your applications. While yes, you could store tokens in an environment variable, the best practice is to store your Momento Auth token in a secure service such as AWS Secrets Manager or GCP Secret Manager, depending on where your applications are hosted, of course. If you can, it's recommended to reuse Momento client connection objects in your app, so you're not fetching these tokens from a secrets manager and then getting your Momento client connection object every time your app needs data. I'll put a link in the description to a sample app that shows you how to do this, but from my personal testing, if you do not reuse client connections, each data plane access to a cache or topic can take 5x to 10x longer due to fetching the token from the secret manager and then creating and destroying the client connection object each time. In addition, each query for the token in a secret manager costs a fraction of real money, so if you're reusing connections, it lowers your per call latency and it saves you money. What's not to like about that? So let's jump into a quick demo of creating tokens in a Momento console and then using them programmatically. Here we are in the Momento console looking at the generate tokens section, and I'm going to select AWS for my cloud provider, US West 2 for my region, 30 days for the token expiration, and I'm going to create a super user token and hit generate token. I'm going to scroll down here and you can see there's a lot of information here that you might need. Here is the actual auth token that we would have to pass in with the API call to create the client connection object. The refresh token, if we want to refresh this token after 30 days, since that's when it expires, we can make an API call to actually refresh the same exact token and re-up it for another 30 days. And we can see here that it is valid for the 30 days from when I'm recording this. We can download that JSON as well. You can see here a quick example on setting an item into a Momento cache, getting an item from it, all using the command line. But then if you want to click examples, you can see here from your favorite languages in our SDKs that you might have. Now let's scroll up here and look at a fine-grained access token, which is definitely a little bit different. In this case, I have two different types. I have cache and I have topics. I am going to do a cache. I'm going to select my cache name of my list of caches that I have created. I could do multiples of these. I could do demo cache and my cache. I could do read only or read write like I mentioned earlier, and then I can do add permission. I can actually add multiple things here. I'm not locked down to this. I can go back here now and say, okay, Kirk's cache. I'm going to hit add permission and add it now. And I haven't generated the token yet, so I can keep changing this as part of this token. I can add, okay, we're going to do a topic. Same caches. I'm going to do a topic name pizza that are inside these caches, and a subscribe only, and add that permission. And so now this token is going to cover for these three caches read only, and for these three caches, if there is a topic named pizza in any of these caches, I can now subscribe to this and subscribe only to this particular one. If I wanted to delete any of these, I could. And now that I have this, I'm going to hit generate token. And much like in the other screen where I was doing the super user token, has the same thing: auth token, endpoint, refresh token, valid until. I have my examples here and being able to go to examples with our SDKs. The big thing to look at here is what we saw before, where I can add different ones in here. I can say also now publish subscribe only. I can change this, hit add permission, and you can see here I'm now whittled down this list and hit generate token. And now this new token has just these permissions. This is the way that you want to go when you have your application. You don't want to be using a super user token for a regular application unless you absolutely have to have it where you're doing control plane operations. So let's look at some code that actually uses one of these tokens. So I have a function here called create topic client. It brings in the secret name and the region, and we're going to go get from AWS Secrets Manager the token that we have stored there. We're calling this function here to actually go into AWS Secrets Manager. We're passing in the name of the secret to look for, the region that we have it stored in, and this function is actually up here. It's just AWS Secrets Manager code. You can find it in one of our repositories. Now let's look at actual creating of the topic client, which is pretty similar to creating a cache client as well. Just with the cache client, you have to add in a TTL into this connection. In here, we're going to create the topic client. We're going to pass in the configuration. We're using the latest version of the development configuration. And then we're passing in a credential provider with the from string. Since that's what's passed back from this get token function, we're going to pass that in as part of a JSON object. And then this is going to return a topic client to the calling code. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Have a good one.